For most retirement communities, we always start by answering that question by taking a look at the individual goals of that retirement community. I think that when we're starting to work with a client, once we've gone through that monitoring phase, we would then go and set up accounts on the key social networks to make sure that they're securing their space and start to get them to make sure that they have that real estate. But I think that getting engaged in that listening and learning section is very important, and finding out the sort of places online that your target markets are, and that's going to vary by community. And that's why it's a tough question to answer without knowing more about the community. Erin, what would you like to add?
Well, it's an interesting question because it's already sparked some responses even from our fellow attendees. One person reminded us it's a multi-channel world, so putting all your eggs in one basket would not be what we recommend.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely start with that business goals first and understanding, how do people want to be communicated with, and what information are you giving them that's appropriate to that platform. That helps you match up the message with the vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about the users, making sure it's relevant and comfortable to them, whether that user is a prospective resident or alternatively you're trying to communicate with your team members. They may be more comfortable in a different venue, but that's going to guide your social media investment.
Okay. Anything else? All right. Well, moving on to what you must do. And we've gone over a lot of information, so focus on where to start. One of the key parts is to go back to that promise I made in the earlier about having a social media policy. And what a social media policy is can be very brief, but a very clear expectation for everyone in your organization of what is acceptable and what isn't acceptable, both in representing the company or community and in their own lives when they mention it. So we like to be inspired by the U.S. Navy. They've got more than 300,000 personnel operating nearly 300 ships and more than 3,500 aircraft. Yet lots of individuals and teams within the Navy use social media. A lot of organizations we know try to ban it, but that's not realistic. So they set up a simple policy: loose tweets sink fleets. Now, the risk of not having a policy is there was a community that I've worked with that had to deal with not only with somebody who brought a gun into the building, but they then discovered that night when they went home and thought that they'd resolved the issue, that an employee had decided that that was such an exciting day, they wanted to share it with all their friends on Facebook, where she went into detail about what had happened in that community that day, and the word spread quickly and ended up through the greater community, and that executive director did not have a good evening or next day. So having a policy is pretty simple. If you need resources on that, we can send them to you. Just let us know. But it's really important. Next is you have to have a clear strategy. Strategy must consider both the on and offline efforts, and that you must have your definite audiences in mind and metrics and goals to measure your success, which is part of why I was struggling with the question of what's the best place to be. You need to make a commitment of resources and determine your scale of effort and investment. And you need to be committed to continuing to educate yourself because, as I say, it's rapidly evolving and we're all students. I encourage you to subscribe to our blog, Mature Marketing Matters, because we post information there about trends and opportunities and case studies that can help you use social media to promote your communities. And finally, need to face reality. Despite all the hype, it's important to remember that even contagious messages die. A 10% forward rate would be fantastic, but it's really not that likely. It's likely to die out after one generation. And the second challenge is that while reach and frequency, which were once very expensive, are now cheap, The new challenge is, how do you get people's attention? What are you going to provide that is of value that people want to spend their time on and want to refer other people? And you have to be committed. If you don't maintain your site, it's going to look dated and raises more questions than if you never had one. You also need to be prepared to handle the untidy nature of social media. Here, Del Webb is trying to promote massage, and a customer wants to complain about mold. And you need to be ready for the long haul. If you're looking to build occupancy this quarter, social media is really not the best way to go about it, but it does have the potential for some very long-term benefits. So in closing, the challenge that you face is that we'd like to believe that you're going to share your message with one person and they'll share it with three and they'll share it with three, but that's not quite the reality. And while it makes it possible for you to reach lots of people across vast networks, the reality is our targets, boomers and seniors, still value the personal, direct, one-to-one feeling. I want to end the presentation with this quote because as a strategic market agency, we just simply love it. It's so easy to get caught up in all the hype that's around social media. It can be fun to explore and experiment with different things, and I encourage you to do so. For some, it's a little intimidating and unnerving. You may not be aware of what the latest new gadget or site or plugin or feature, but that's okay. It doesn't really need to be overwhelming. Just remember that social media is just another tool that you can use to connect with your audience and influencers. It's a powerful tool, and you can really make it work for you. So I hope you found some beneficial information today, and see if any other questions came in.
We do have a question, Todd, which would be a good one to start off with, which is what metrics or tools do you recommend using to start tracking results of your social media marketing?
Well, it depends on what you've chosen to do, but one of the key places to start is with your website analytics, because we are going to assume that part of what you're trying to do is to drive additional traffic to your website. So by looking at your analytics, you can see a few things that are going to help you determine how effective your social media is. One is the sources that people come from. Another one is taking a look at what those people who come in from those sources, what they do and their success on the site. How much time are they spending on the site? We have a client that we found that people who came to their website from Facebook were spending an average of 6 minutes on the site versus an average of 3 minutes, about 3 minutes for the overall. So that was an indication not only were they getting traffic from Facebook, it was a higher quality traffic and had a higher conversion, and conversion could be a goal on your website to complete a form. So the metrics are really a great place to take a look at it. You also, quite typically, people who set up a community would be looking at the participation in that community, not just the number of people, but the level of engagement would be some of the metrics to look at. And also would have an impact in terms of when you're going and commenting on other communities. You can track to see your traffic, like I pointed out in that example earlier, two examples, one which drove 50 visits to a website, another one which drove 900. So a lot of it relates back to the web metrics. Erin, anything else?
Just a reminder that if you are choosing to use a social media platform such as Twitter, for example, there are metrics and analytics built into Twitter as well. You can track the number of retweets or mentions that include your Twitter handle, your presence. Same thing for Facebook. Facebook has quite a bit of analytics built into your page. So, really avail yourself of those management tools can help you track your metrics. Another quick question for you, Todd. Someone told me that if I had a Facebook page, my traffic to my website could go down. Is this true?
It certainly is true. If people go and find your Facebook page when they're searching rather than your own website, they could go there and choose not to come to your website. Typically we see it increase, but it's an interesting question because if it goes down, but your engagement on Facebook goes up, and you're, instead of encouraging them to go to your website or encouraging them to call, I'm not sure if that's necessarily a bad thing, but I think it's unlikely. Erin, your thoughts?
I'm with you on that. You can at times, if you're putting a lot of your effort into the Facebook page and not making it motivating enough to go to your website, you can kind of keep them within that little Facebook world, but I'm with you on that one, Todd. Another question, one of our participants noted that Dell Web example showed somebody asking about a mold problem, and Dell Web responded by giving an email address to submit their concerns. Do you always have to respond to somebody's public complaint in public?
I think that it's beneficial to, because it shows that you're responsive. And one of the challenges when we talk to people is that they have this concern that there's going to be negativity out there. And the reality is that if people go to a site and they see a problem raised and resolved, it makes them feel better about the organization than if they go to something that is so tightly managed and it just is a little too slick and looks like advertising. So first part is, I wouldn't be upset about having some problems, and I would encourage you to respond to them. There are going to be some comments that are inappropriate, and that's different. But if it's a legitimate issue, responding makes sense.
One last question, Todd, and it was, is if there was one reason you would give for why someone should use social media, what would it be?
I think that if you go back to that Pew study where almost 50% of people 50 to 64 are using it, it's a great avenue to be out in front of them and to become part of the conversation. The conversation's going on. You can either choose to be part of it or not. And for the relatively low cost, it's got a very great opportunity to help drive more traffic to your website and for you to learn more about your target audience. So with that, if you have additional questions, feel free to reach out to anybody on Creating Results personally. My email's here. We want to thank you all for joining the webinar today. I hope that we provided you with some clarity about how social media can help you market your communities. And if you did ask questions and we didn't get to them, we'll reach out to you tomorrow. And if you've got additional questions, please let us know. If you'd like to talk about how to start, what makes sense for your specific situation, be happy to discuss it with you. And coming to you by email is the deck from this webinar, a social media cheat sheet and scale-up action plan, as well as a social media survival guide, and a link to watch this webinar. And if you'd like to be put on our list for findings from our 40-plus research into Internet preferences and social media that we're going to be releasing this fall, let me know. So thank you very much. Have a great day,